When I think of liminal spaces like the back rooms, I feel a deep-rooted sense of fear and uncertainty. Something telling me that I shouldn't be here, I need to leave, something isn't right. But why? Why are these images so unsettling? That's when I realized that liminal spaces are just a symbol for a larger, fundamental condition residing in our everyday lives. A fear that things are changing and that you're out of place. It's the feeling you get when you feel behind in life, starting at square one after all these years. The feeling of logging on to an empty game server, wondering why you're still caught up in old nostalgia. The train has left the station, and you're all alone. And oddly enough, I found that this liminal loneliness hits the hardest in the busiest places of all, cities. Because the city advertises itself as the meeting place to connect and feel connected, making the idea of being alone in a sea of millions of lives even harder to grapple with. Today we take a look at liminal loneliness, the isolation in the in-betweens of our lives. Defined as places of transition that evoke a surreal nostalgia, I had noticed a common thread between many liminal spaces. From the back rooms, to empty playgrounds and schools at night, to odd, non-functional architecture. They were almost entirely urban. It seems that as a place begins to lose its intended function, you also lose your own sense of belonging. What are you doing, standing in a space that is meant to be filled with the presence of others? Out in rural areas, the isolation is regarded as solitude. It's normal to have empty space there, preferred even. But in the city, you feel an innate contradiction. Places designed for people without people. Ironically, I experienced this separating feeling most while walking past Washington, D.C.'s Department of Housing and Urban Development. I'm sure it feels normal in the day, but I've only experienced it at night on my way to and from music concerts. Getting off the train, I first walked through L'Enfant Plaza, whose shops are all shuttered for the night, leaving only the buzz of tungsten left on in case of the odd traveler after hours. Afterwards, I pushed past the odd exterior of the department building. Large, imposing stone columns stagger along the winding pathway. In times of emptiness, there's nothing to hide their cold nature. And then comes the full brutalism of the building's architecture. Windows reminiscent of jail cells. Circular canopies with their centers hollowed out to prevent actual function. And an intimidating pillar to label the emotionless compound. Here, like many urban liminal spaces, your stay is not welcomed. Comfort is against the very nature of these places for transit, and this uneasiness guides me to leave as quickly as possible. Liminality in cities are inherent by design. The sheer density of a population requires an ability to handle the ebb and flow of many individuals navigating their daily lives. As such, many of the transitional spaces in cities intimidate you into leaving. It's a matter of efficiency. But it doesn't have to be like that. In Tokyo, Japan, the largest city in the world, you're always a stranger to someone in your presence. But unlike cities in the US, public spaces in Tokyo are purposefully designed to encourage the art of enjoying one's own company.
一つは、海外から東京に戻ってきた時に、その一人空間っていうものが圧倒的に日本には多い。例えば、カプセルホテルであるとか、パーティションを持った半個室型ラーメン店とか。現代の都市の一人空間っていうのはとりわけ日本はそうなんですけれども、駅前を中心とするその移動の経路 に現れていることが多いんですね。中間空間っていうのは、家と学校、会社、職場の間にある中間の空間。
It's important to design urban spaces that welcome individuals because when done properly, a city becomes an extension of one's home rather than the limits. And increasingly in modern society, one-person households are becoming the norm.
The social change is extraordinary. 22% of Americans were single in 1950. 49% of American adults are single today. 9% of one-person households in 1950. 28% of all households have just one person today. The fastest growing segment of people who live alone are young adults under the age of 35. Now it is an urban condition. Our lives are different today than they've been in the past. Living alone is made possible by economic affluence and security. This is the new demographic that for me is the most fascinating. You don't see social changes like this very often. You also can't understand the rise of living alone outside of the communications revolution. Is there anything more innovative than changing the entire way in which we organize our lives and our households?
And so, although there is still plenty of loneliness in Japan, it's the little things in the places we frequent and the mindset we build that reflect how comfortable we are alone.
すごい小さい時から家庭の中に社会があったというか、そういう中ですごいずっと生きてきたから、やっぱり一人暮らしを本格的に始めて、なんか今までの自分は自分であることに変わりはないんだけど、ただやっぱり殻をかぶってたなっていう風に感じることがすごい多くて、当たり障りがないようにとか、その自分の家族内での役割とか、そういったものとかどう見られた方がいいかとか、そういう風なので無意識に自分を殻でどんどん包んでたところがあるなと思って、どんどん一人で暮らしてると、そんな自分ポジティブじゃないなとか、やっぱり一人でいるのが好きだなとか思ったり、そういうことは結構あって楽しいです。
Regardless of how we design cities with loneliness in mind, it will never fully leave us. Because loneliness is lack of intimacy, not lack of people. Have you ever moved to a new city? To be a foreigner in a place people have lived all their lives in comes with a deep alienation. Being in a space where you can peer through limitless windows and restaurants makes you feel like everyone in the world is doing something without you. In her own experiences in New York City, author Olivia Laing writes,
The bad times came in the evenings when I went back to my room, sat on the couch and watched the world outside me going on through glass, one light bulb at a time. It seemed too awful, I suppose, the idea that anyone could peer over and get a glimpse of me, eating cereal standing up or combing over emails, my face illuminated by the laptop's glare.
Physical isolation quickly becomes compounded when you're also scrambling to figure out where your life is headed. On the internet, I see so many confessions from people who feel lost, stuck between A and B. Liminality is therefore present not only in spaces, but in our own phases of life.
It's quite unbearable when I see, videos on TikTok of friend groups together and traveling and going to parties and having fun. It hurts me because I haven't had that really. I don't really know why it's taken so long for me to find my people. I deserve good things and I just don't know why I'm not getting it. Sometimes I feel like I've been cursed at birth. It makes me feel that the universe has forgotten about me.
The busy city asks you to constantly move and take action, but it's hard to do anything at all when the path is unclear and the future goes farther and farther apart. We want to be in a state of comfort, of company, and of answers, but it can be a slow, exhausting process to get there.
The revelation of loneliness, the omnipresent, unanswerable feeling that I was in a state of lack, that I didn't have what people were supposed to, and that this was down to some grave and no doubt externally unmistakable failing in my person.
Unsurprisingly, I don't have an answer to the loneliness we feel. We can make the journey easier by designing better physical spaces in our cities and mental spaces where we process things. But I made this video to say that to be lonely is to be human. It's not new and it's not wrong to go about your day as your own independent self.
都市における、一人のライフスタイルっていうのは、住宅内部に完結するというよりは、昔であれば銭湯であったりコインラウンドリーであったり食堂であったりですね、そういう都市のライフスタイルっていうのはある意味その街全体が自分の家だとして捉える。
As obvious as this may seem, it helps to know that loneliness is a shared feeling, one that we all traverse through at one point or another, just like the spaces we travel through in our cities.
Loneliness is a very special place. It is by no means a wholly worthless experience, but rather one that cuts through the heart of what we value and what we need. Many marvelous things have emerged from the lonely city, things forged in loneliness, but also things that function to redeem it.
There's so many people in the world who are just sometimes better at describing how I feel and my desires, and it makes me feel less alone because I feel so alone right now that I just genuinely don't know what to do. But I will keep trying. Not much else I can do other than try. The world is filled with an unimaginable amount of pain and suffering, but also an unimaginable amount of delight and beauty.
So take your time. You will get to where you want to be, because you always have. Time and time again. Thanks for listening.